So here at the Socially Used Studio, after every shoot, we sit around in the control room and we talk about what went good, what went bad, and what we could do better in the future. And we realized that we should probably record these things so we can actually remember what we said. And then we realized that this could possibly be good content for the people who view our channel. So come along with us as we learn, grow, and fail, and maybe you can learn something as we learn too. Welcome to the Debrief.
In the last 2 days, we had clients from Asbury Theological Seminary here in the studio. They used 3 different sets and a variety of ways of using the teleprompter. So let's debrief.
Yeah, it was a action-packed 2 days, actually 4 people really, because we had a surprise guest at the end do that. And so I think we were pretty pumped about this, and I'd like to do this slightly differently today and start out with Unreal Engine. And let's take a look at the behind the scenes. We're getting a lot of requests of how in the world are you guys doing this? What are you doing for your sets? And so Morgan, I think it'd be great for you to kind of show, here's the set and here's how we used it.
Yeah, so this is Unreal Engine 5.1. This is a set from Evermotion. And in here, it's kind of like a modern architectural office kind of vibe. Things we did to modify the set was to delete some of the furniture. There was a whole extra row of desks right here, similar to these. We got rid of some of the computer screens and things like that that just didn't look very accurate. They all had like Unreal Engine and just crazy stuff on them. Back on this back wall, one of the challenges is artwork in the Unreal environment. These were just 3 giant painting of landscapes, and we ended up doing a slightly different process to get our artwork. Andre, do you want to talk about that?
Well, I've been nerding out. I'm sure if you're watching these sorts of videos, you may be nerding out about this too, but I've been nerding out with AI generated art. So I used Stable Diffusion and created these paintings. So essentially I just this is Asbury Theological Seminary, and their main color is this blue color. So I actually just fed Stable Diffusion the hex value of the color blue that they have, and then just looking at the palette of the room, we had blue, brown, white, gray kind of colors, and so we kind of made that be our colors of choice. The set itself came with this more yellow color that you can see kind of around there, but which is super cool looking, but that just wasn't their vibe. So yeah, I think that turned out pretty good. It was, if nothing else, it's just as good as maybe some of the other paintings we would have come up with, but the client loved the story of AI generated this. In fact, he was so excited about it. He's like, send that file to me so I can print one out and, use it in my house or whatever. So that was kind of the mythology of it, I guess, was interesting as well.
Yeah, and then I'll kind of punch over to me here. Something that we did different on this one was we had the different locations within the set. So I'll kind of show that here. So this was one of the sets.
We had 3 total.
Yeah, 3 total. So this one, and then we kind of turned and shot this direction. And then we had a couple different ones kind of up in here that we ended up not using. But the way I kind of did a little bit of presetting of locations was with, see if I can pull it up here, these actors. And with our tracking system, we have to have a center point, and all of our cameras kind of come off of this little sphere right here. And so I'm attaching all my different cameras here, 1 through 6, to that sphere. So now if I drop this into a different location, all my cameras end up jumping around. So here they are over at this location. If I drop them over here, they'll kind of move around within the room along with our tracking system. So it's kind of cool to be able to have presets for locations. That's really helpful.
This was super cool because what this allowed us to do is a very different workflow than we've had before. The workflow we've had before is okay, we're ready for the next set. Please hold while we save and exit Unreal and open up project number 2, which can take many minutes, not seconds. And now you were able to just go in and push a button, and then boom, we're in that different setup. So this, we even had, as the clients were kind of moving throughout the day, the talent that maybe wouldn't be on until the second day was able to walk in the room, and we were able to push a button, and instantly they were in that. Now, would we adjust the lighting and everything a little bit? Sure. But we were able to pop them over and then pop right back. The other benefit I think this had is it's very much like if we were really shooting this on a location where we would pick aspects inside the facility to shoot these different setups. And so it's subtle, but I think there's kind of a sense of like I'm in the same space, even though each thing looks really different. We never show like this big flying through view like you were showing, but no one ever sees that. But the different palettes and setups that we have, this direction of the lighting stays consistent. So through that, I think it was kind of interesting because we were able to, yeah, there you go. So like that's going to be a set that we had set up. Where you could kind of, those big windows, the light coming in. And then we had these other setups where it's just in this room. And so there's kind of a familiarity with that. So I thought that was super cool. And I imagine moving forward, the way I can see it right now is everything has this concept of if we're on the same shooting day and we've got to change between different setups, it's all on the same level. Where we do some version of this. Morgan, you mentioned a couple of different ideas of how you may position the cameras, but it's super cool.
And part of the challenge is as we build our sets, again, we're buying a lot of these pre-made, but as we kind of customize things like walls, I think you just saw it right there.
Right.
That's a real challenge because we want to position our cameras wherever we want, and sometimes that's inside a wall like this.
Right.
So that's been a real challenge for us to so the sets are still kind of limiting us, even though we went from physical to virtual, just because we haven't had the time to really optimize our virtual set.
Well, these are being designed as they would be in architecture versus like a TV studio. So I think as we move forward too, thinking through where our cameras would be positioned and how that relates to, the overall image would be a big deal too.
Yeah. And then one more thing while we're in Unreal land here is the client mentioned how it kind of clicked together in their brain that this was like a video game engine because we were able to just take a painting and just move it over or rotate.
Well, there wasn't even a painting on the wall.
Yeah, you duplicated the other one at first and then moved it over.
Yeah, when we told him, we're like, I think there needs to be a painting on the wall over there behind, and you went to some other spot of the image and grabbed the painting and moved it over. I saw his brain like, what in the world just happened? Because we weren't doing camera movement on this shoot. So it kind of just looked like, I guess these are pictures of a pretty place. And they hadn't seen us behind the scenes already changing the colors of the chairs to be blue and, kind of making it all have that uniform look. They weren't seeing us do any of that. So, but once he saw you move, he's like, that means you could just have digital furniture and just move it into set. And it's like, yeah, that was when I think his brain started like, oh, I now get it.
Combine that with already breaking his brain talking about the AI generated art,
right?
Too,
Yes, we definitely felt like the future. We are the future. It's a whole new world of what we're doing. It's very new.
The cool piece about being able to snap from point to point really was, you briefly mentioned it, but we had another guy, John Ragzeloweeta today, on the first day while the other two talents were working. He was able to walk in with his jacket and Morgan clicked a button and we were on his set and we tried out multiple pieces of clothing and then he left and Morgan clicked a button and by the time our talent was back on stage, we were recording again. And that's never been possible, not even really. I never even thought we would imagine something like that coming from like physical set land, you know what I mean? So that part kind of blew my mind. I was like, wow, look at that. We're already hitting pre-production for the next day because we're able to toss between these sets real fast.
Totally.
I thought that was awesome.
Can you pull up what the final product looks like? Can we cut over to that?
So from the unreal world to the unreal.
Super unreal world. So here we can see, here she is. This was the first talent of the day. Emma, do you know what time we started filming on the first day?
I think on the first day we started around 10:30. They got here maybe 10-ish. They got here around 8:30. We got her in hair and makeup. Hair and makeup took probably a little bit of time, but then we got her in there, and it was very fast, actually. So I feel like we probably started actually recording around 10:30.
Okay. Yeah.
So our time is getting earlier and earlier as we kind of get better and better at what we're accomplishing now.
Well, and Jay had created a lighting setup for a previous shoot that was kind of a box all around the subject. And so that had been for sitting, and this is for standing. So we just raised all that the day before and started kind of getting the lighting, motivated from whichever side. On this side, it was from the left. And so when she stood there, we could kind of tweak those values and kind of get it honed in. And it didn't take very long at all to get it ready to go in that regard. The physical lighting of the subject that still really has, the cinematography part that still has to happen.
I'm actually noticing that the most lighting that we're being very peculiar about and like really concentrating
Particular
on
is probably the word you're looking for.
Do what?
Particular.
Peculiar, hilarious.
It is peculiar.
We've shot for 2 days. Well, the number one thing we're concentrating on now is hair light, because that's the number one thing that sells it. Sometimes, like if you don't get that edge right, like you can light them and you can show motivation, and it's like, cool, that's believable, yeah, sure. But then when you hit the hair light right, it's like that's when the magic happens for me. So that's the main. I feel, well, besides false color, which is the biggest one, to be able to get the key right. But the hair lights are
that glare on her arm. If you can show that again on her, I guess her right arm, on the top of her arm. Totally, to me, sells that the light's coming in from that side. Because of the contrast between the really dark areas and the light areas, it's not just a big evenly lit blob, Because that's the way it looks in the real world.
Yeah, and then I know the light is motivated here from the left coming in, but there's that really shiny reflection behind her, and having that hair light on the other side, although it may not be where the light's coming from, it really sells that like light is bouncing all around the room and from spots like that back onto her too.
I love that hot spot too that got created on that, because it just feels like, oh yeah, that makes sense. There's just a big shiny thing that's happening there.
Yeah.
Can you kind of just drag through and show a couple of the other shots on this? So on all of these, it's essentially a wide, a tight, and a side, and then we're doing a punch. So this is a punch off of the wide. So those two shots are the same shot. And then there's a side shot that we have going there. And then...
And that light on her shoulder.
Yeah.
Just, man.
And then we would open on this shot.
Oh, right. There's the wide. Sorry.
Yeah, this is the super wide. This was our quote unquote establishing here.
Look at the floor.
Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah, and this floor had scratches in it in Unreal, and it even kind of fooled us a little bit for a second or two. We were like, what? Oh, no, that's in the Unreal thing.
One other cool part about this set, too, is what are the chairs called?
Air-on chairs.
Air-on chairs, and we have one here, right? So you were like, man, I need to go get that and put it in there and try and like tie the set together.
I know.
Foreground and the background.
Yeah, I think one thing we are missing right now is how do we bring in more physical objects to kind of be in the background, to transition between real and unreal.
Yeah.
That's still something we've got to kind of work through.
Yeah, like if people have... Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say we had an idea of maybe we have a rolling whiteboard and bringing that into the back left corner and maybe like writing something on it. We thought of that idea, but we ended up not doing it. We thought about it. It was a fleeting thought. But incorporating like our real props into the background is something that I think we might do in the future.
Yeah, what I was gonna say is all of you viewers out there who watch every single one of these, I believe did we talk about the school set where we use the basket? So we went and filmed plates at Signal Mountain Middle School in Andre's wife's classroom. And since we did it there, we had access to bring one of the baskets that was actually in the plate here and put it on the desk that the lady was sitting at to tie it together.
Right.
So you saw one on her desk and you saw one in the plate on the background.
Right.
Doing that concept. Like obviously we could take one of those with us and do that. But yeah, bringing more things that tie it together is super important.
Yeah, I mean, it would have also been cool if we had a table. Like one of the things that I want as a takeaway is that sad table. We love that table. I mean, it still looks fine in there, but we've used that table so much. So it'd be nice if we have kind of a similar solution with the desk where we have these different tops that we could put on. So we need some kind of solution where it's really easy for us to slap. Because if that was a white tabletop, I think it would really have looked a little more uniform. I mean, it still worked okay, but that would have been
There's a way to do that.
Modified.
I think I could come up with something.
Sure, totally. Just so many things that we can get done in a day. That wasn't one of them. Okay, so that was set number 1. Just pulling it back up real quick. Sorry, Jay, to distract you on that. But last thing I would say, I was having some trouble with some of the art behind her. It wasn't dark enough, so you can see a lot of those flyaways. So the challenge with doing these rim light hair lights like this is that it accentuates all the flyaways. And those flyaways, when there's a bright background behind it, can get kind of, they can become very noticeable, and it starts really making it fake feeling. Where if we get some darker imagery behind it, it really helps sell that. So we did have to kind of wiggle around. I think there was a second shot that we had to kind of push. Morgan had to go and disconnect it from the tracker and kind of scooch it over so that it would have a little bit more of the painting behind it. But the last thing I wanted to say about this set specifically, the other thing that made this work really well is she's wearing navy, white, she's brown, red lips. There's a little red on the book. And so all those things together made a really nice, cohesive color palette.
Yes.
Well, and she has lighter colored hair and having the dark behind her hair. And then contrast to the one we're going to talk about in a little while with the light background.
Yes.
So
yeah, great.
And I was Emma and I were talking about this morning. I think that if we know a set with a decent amount of time ahead, whenever we're talking about wardrobe, instead of telling them like, hey, no green and bring options, maybe we can actually give them like, here is a color palette that we think you should stick with. And then that way they could bring options in that color palette. And then we could also, tie the background and foreground together through their wardrobe. So should we bring up the next one?
Yeah, let's go up to the next one. So, and while we're doing that, Morgan, if you cut over to my Apple TV, then my favorite thing to do stuff with. So here we can kind of see a stupid vertical video, but here you can see sort of some behind the scenes of our second client that was on air. I didn't think to really take a full image of this, so I'm just kind of moving around. It's just some B-roll that I was grabbing, so enjoy its bumpiness. But as Jay's pulling that up, if I just kind of jump ahead, maybe you can kind of see that's what we're showing him. Of course, I've turned the monitors around so I could just kind of do a little clip of this, but all he is it's just him. There's no set at all. It's just him on the screen, and that's it. I think somewhere through here, man, really got a great video for you. Anyway, so I guess I was doing a move, but yeah, that's really it. It's just him and a mic on set. And so with some diffusion, we're using IntelliTech Mega light cloths to do the main lighting, rim lighting with some Hive lights. And so Jay, why don't you show, here's finished product.
Yep.
Excuse me.
So if you remember when Morgan was flying around in Unreal, this set was when the last one was us looking at the paintings at the back of the room through the desk setup. Now this is to the left of that, aimed at that blank wall that we eventually put a painting on for another set, but not this one. And it's got that credenza, which it's so funny. We used to be a only physical set space here. And one of the things we had was this smaller white credenza bookshelf thing
with those perfectly
sized
plants,
little
just
plants.
like that.
And I thought to myself, that's hilarious because that might have been an actual piece of a set in the past, and now we're doing it in an Unreal. I just thought that was pretty funny.
And then move back over to the Apple TV, you can see, so I'm just doing a little move around him here. Let me fast forward, but cool, I had that super queued up for you. There you go. So here's kind of what he's seeing. So he's got this kind of 3 points of light. There's a light off to the side here, one on top, and then one on the other side. So imagine kind of like a triangle. And then, oh yeah, there's me sneaking behind there. And there's what he's seeing. So he can kind of see himself composited in. And then here's his prompter right here. By the way, these are shot, we've moved over to the new Blackmagic 6K studio cameras, and the skin tones are super different, and I love the way they're looking. And then we've got this really classy flag that we've thrown up here just to give a little spill on this side and a little more shadow side over here. So
It worked.
yeah, works just fine.
Yeah, I think I just randomly did that trying to work with that shadow side because number 2, which is the one on the top, was not helping me in any way. It was just not giving us any shadow. And then ever since, if we don't pull that down, it kind of lives up there now and just kind of goes from side to side.
Yeah, great.
Is this footage of the Ultimate monitor?
Sure seemed like it was going to be, but sure isn't. I'm like, oh, I could kind of show the key. I'm showing off. Okay, there you go. There it is. There she goes. Let's rewind just a little bit. So yeah, so that's, I'm real classy videoing the monitor, but there's the combined mat. There's just the raw feed. And of course, there's the final composited image that we did there. And super steady handwork I've got going on here.
I asked you about the IBIS on
and
there.
great focus. That's why I'm in management now, is because I'm not the right guy to be the
Frank
one
Sinatra
filming, apparently.
essentials.
Yeah.
There it goes.
Anyway, there's those shots. All right, enough of
You can
this.
come back over here, Morgan. So this is the, we didn't use the bigger wide on this one, I don't think, because it didn't look right. So this is the wide. And I'll let that play out for a second. And then, so that window's over there on his right side. And then this is the side shot, which was my favorite of the bunch. With that other window that'll be in a set in a minute. And what's funny is his, we didn't really think about glasses at all. And we haven't recently because of the way we've been lighting. Especially in the past because the windows have looked, or the lights have looked like windows. But this time I didn't really notice that big of a reflection that was bothering me in his glasses. I thought about it for a while and watched it after the fact because I didn't even think about it, but it didn't bother me too much.
Oh, I thought about it, but yeah, I was paying attention to it. I mean, it's always a tricky thing. Angle of incidence equals angle of reflection. If you're trying to figure out how to get rid of glasses reflection, that's the key sentence you want to Google. And the challenge is when you do that, it's going to kind of more side light the person. So now you've got to figure out, well, how do we create a catch light in the eye? And so we got one there, but it's not, I wish I could have pumped just a little bit more light into his eyes on that. It's just a little, I would say it's like 2 stops down from where I wish it was. I mean, I still want a shadow side, but I wish I could have brightened his eyes just a little more, but it is what it is. So, yeah. Okay, let's keep it moving. So that was that set, and it was great, a lot of fun. He did a prompter. Tyler, talk quickly before we move off of that.
All 3 of these folks are amazing at speaking on a teleprompter. They have years and years and years of experience speaking in front of groups live. And so the first lady, she did, what's her name? She did, Ellen, she did prompter with bullet points. The next guy did a prompter but with a word-for-word script. Mm-hmm. And then the last guy, we haven't seen him yet, did a prompter with an outline. So all the 3 different ways that you can put things on there. And they all did amazing. So they could look at what they were reading and say it as if it was coming just right off the top of their heads. It was really impressive.
Did you learn anything about, because you're working on some video?
Oh yeah. It's just preparation, and as we say, the studio rewards preparation, because they were so familiar with speaking on the fly, and they knew the material and they had it properly arrayed in front of them. There were hardly any stops. I think we had very few stops, and they weren't because the copy was wrong. And it's a huge contrast to when someone comes in, they haven't rehearsed, the copy is not written well, and they've never looked at it.
Right.
They're stopping and stopping and stopping. And man, so they just blew right through the content, one right after the other, with hardly any stopping. It was
10, we had 10 pickups between all 3 of them.
And how many videos did we?
They did I need to count, but they did a pretty good number of videos.
One thing I noticed that outline formatting is difficult to transfer into the prompter software that we're using right now. Maybe it'd be different.
Just Power Prompter.
The first lady that she had it was like a keynote, and so what we did is we put it on monitors in the studio, as well as the prompter, and then the other guy they both just used the prompter. so getting her stuff from a PowerPoint presentation into the prompter was just not going to work. But she was able to click through with our little clicker thing here to go through and control that herself. Yeah, perfect cues. Yeah, it's a great little device.
You were mentioning it, so I just counted. It was 34 total videos.
Yeah, with only 10 pickups, and they were super easy. They're like really clean edits and everything.
Yeah, for sure. I think I've noticed that educators seem to be the group where, like, if there's a Venn diagram, one side is like the amount of knowledge and passion they have within that knowledge, and then the other side would be like speaking. Those two are meshed together, like, because sometimes you get experts in the field and they are terrible in front of camera, and then you have people who are amazing in front of camera, but they're not experts in anything. They're just good at reciting stuff. So I think educators have become that middle piece of that Venn diagram for me. I've started to notice as we have more and more clients here.
If you cut over to the the Apple TV, then you can see one of the things we're always trying to figure out ways to delight. This is so derpy. This is so stupid. But they're like, oh man, he's super into Marvel. He's processing that it's mirrored. It's not mirrored, so he's trying to figure out. But anyway, I just found some derpy video of a chroma key. I'm totally just kind of doing it in real time and messing around with him. It's totally dumb, but it got a laugh, and it got a it just and it made him. He's super into Marvel, and so it was just a stupid, fun thing to do. That's really quick and derpy, and it didn't have to look pro and do that. And then here's just the going through the key of what those looked like. Just on the
and
the
first guest was a big fan of Tom Selleck, and so you queued up the Magnum PI theme music and blasted it in there, and she just laughed like she had the biggest kick out of that.
Well, she felt known, so that's the thing is people feel known and it's really a funny thing to realize that you can ask somebody like, who's your favorite whatever, and then just wait a few minutes and then do something with that. And then they feel known at a super deep level. And it's like, the only reason we know to play Magnum PI song is because you said you like Tom Selleck. Like, you told us that. She didn't say play Magnum PI song. She said, oh, I love Tom Selleck. Can you make him next to me? And so I didn't have the time or capacity to do that. So instead, I was like, well, we could play the song. I think Morgan actually did that and pulled the song in. So that was a nice touch, super fast to do, and a huge energy boost for her. Like, when she heard that, her energy she kind of bloomed. Like, oh, I'm known here, and they know me. So that's not a small thing to do that gesture. Okay, and so let's look at this last set. This one turned out really good. So this was going to be upstairs in the in the Unreal place upstairs in the brown kind of wood set, and we were like, I don't know, I'm just not feeling it. And so we did this, and Emma, what was your opinion of this set?
I really liked it. I thought the pop of blue in the back really tied it well together in the chair, and then his blue shirt and the black. It seemed very cohesive and clean and minimal. And I really liked it, personally. Yeah.
It's funny
and
because...
then in the other shot, there's another painting.
Oh, yeah,
play it
his side.
I was literally waiting for somebody to do something. It's me.
You're like, why isn't someone playing this?
Here you go.
Yeah, so I think...
AI-generated art. This was the one that he added that you were flipping around with.
Yeah, I think it's all cohesive and it looks really good. What Andre was saying earlier today when he was filming was if he was wearing a navy coat or like a navy sweater, I think that would have really tied everything well together. But he was wearing black and it still looked really good. But I really liked the set.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I think, can you go back to that main wide shot? Yep. I think also what made this feel just so nice is it was a chance for us to have a brighter image. So we haven't done a lot of bright. We've done a lot of dark, which is, before we were green screen, we were doing lots of bright. And we went away from that because we
got a little scared,
are more challenging on that. And so thankfully, he has an awesome hairstyle that I also sport, and so it's like, oh, cool, keying will not be an issue on the hairs on the corner here. So it was a great chance for us to do that, and I definitely just go ahead and play that for a minute, but keep it on that shot, Jade, or just hit play. So I definitely had trouble with this light on his head, like trying to decide what am I going to do with it, and I ended up just deciding, you know what, it has to be there. because in that world, that's what it would do. And it felt not correct when it wasn't there. I loved it like that, when it was hitting the side of his head. That was really nice. When it hit kind of the top of his head on those side shots, it felt a little off of where it actually would be. But yeah, if you just pause on those. But I think that lighting and hitting it on the side was really nice. I wished I could have splashed a little more color on his side. So like you said, Jay, we're really doing a lot of rim lighting. That's really, so I couldn't get it there, because every time I started really bumping that up in heat, then it would shine even more on his head. So it was this kind of dance.
I think we would have to put a Leica on there and really just focus it right on his shoulder, because then too much light would splash onto the table. So I've got a light mounted, which off what would be his left shoulder up high, and you can't really see it because of the picture-in-picture, but there's a glare on the top of that table right there. There you go. And that would be glaring off of that window. And so it really looks like he's in that setting. And I think on the side shot, you can even see the light hitting the inside of his hand. If you could go to one of the side angles.
That's you, Jay.
Golly.
Jay's looking at it like, yeah, I wonder how that'll happen.
Yeah, that's gonna be great.
Every now and then you can see the light
idea.
hitting the inside of his left hand when he's gesturing. But that, again, it's just one of those little subtle cues that this is a real space and the lights are real. And that's real sunlight coming in.
Yeah, what's tough and what I think, like, in my brain, I think makes the most sense now is it's like we need to get the wide shot, get that set, get the hair light looking perfect, and then it's almost like you have to adjust the side angles to the light. Because what happens is when you set it up and you're like, okay, now our angles are great. Now let's do the hair light. Sometimes one camera is at a weird angle where the way it is in the room, the hair light doesn't actually make sense.
Yeah.
So it's almost like you have to kind of like adjust for the way the hair lights look. That's what I did a little bit today. I had to move it over because this one was bugging me because it's like the top of his head here. Yes, there's a window there, and I know that further over to the right, there's also a window where light could totally be coming in. But right now, if this is the first time you've ever seen it, it ends with a painting and books down below. You know what I mean? So like, that was the challenging part to the hair light.
The other thing we're constantly having a problem, if you go back to the main wide shot.
Hey, that's me.
That's you, Jay. We are shooting shadow. So we're getting a shadow, we're getting a bright side. Maybe just play it for a second and I'll tell you to pause it. And so maybe pausing there, I don't know if it's easy to see, but there's a dark outline around his right, especially down by his elbow. His right, our left.
Yeah, right in here.
That's the other right, but whatever. That one on his right.
Oh, his
Camera
right,
left.
yes. Makes sense.
So there's it's almost like a black magic marker around the edge.
Book outline.
So what's happening there is we don't have a lot of light over there. So it's shadow side. So the green is spilling over onto the black, and that spillover is causing the Ultimat to have to do a little more adjustment on that. So it's creating this kind of dark, almost comic book outline edge. So we just continue to have to play with this, but rim lighting the edges of the talent is ideal from a keying perspective, but it's not always ideal from the environment perspective. In this scenario, had we had a little more time, I would have probably put one more light on that other side and just hit a little bit more of his rimming him out a little bit. Okay, so we were able to do one more person on this same setup. We didn't change because the client, this was kind of a last
I haven't put it in here yet.
last request. And so he was like, actually, if we have time, I would like to go in and do that. Well, we finished up around 3 or 4.
Yeah, like
2:30. 2:30, okay, even earlier. And so with that, we got him to go ahead and hop in. And he had a red shirt, and so and he has more hair. So I was able to hit him with a stronger light. And then because of that, I was able to get, you can see now, his right, camera left. On his side, you can look, if we just play that for just a little bit, Jay, and you can see maybe his hands, maybe not. But yeah, so that all that rim light, see, really helps sell it. And now the back of his head is lit up. Like, to me, that looks a little more real. Like, oh, okay, that's how probably the light would spill around to both sides of him, but we still have a shadow side. And then of course we're always trying to shoot our side shots shadow side. Easy for me to say. So that's what we're trying to do there. Emma, you delighted the customer at the end of the day. So I have, what did you do? And then I'll pull up the photo of it on
Okay, so Pete, the one that you're seeing right now, he's been to the studio so many times and he loves peanut M&Ms. And every time he's here, I usually like pack him up a bag of peanut M&Ms. And we kind of have an inside joke about peanut M&Ms now at this point. And so I just went and got a huge jar and I filled it with peanut M&Ms. And then as he was wrapping, he was taking off his makeup and he was like packing up his things and he was like, I'm just gonna go stuff some peanut M&Ms in my pocket real quick and then we can leave. And then I just show up with this huge jar of peanut M&Ms and he got the biggest kick out of it. And he wanted to take a picture with it. And he wanted to take a picture with me with the peanut M&Ms.
Like,
he's so happy.
And then he's like, before we leave on it, come here, let me get the picture of you with
So
the
it's just like a nice little touch, and it, as Andre was saying, it makes you feel known and seen, and it adds to the experience. And
he doesn't smile like that.
Yeah.
You know, like that's such a smile
was
for him.
so
He
happy.
was so pumped about that. So that was a great, and it showed tons of intentionality. Because it's not like you can just whip up a glass jar, and we never get peanut M&Ms in a glass jar, so it felt extra fancy, even though it's still just peanut M&Ms.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a great way.
Yeah, he was very happy about it, and he thought it was hilarious. So
way to go.
It was a nice touch.
Way to go. Way to pull that off. So delighting the customers is an awesome thing, and it's not that hard to do. But we again, he felt known because it's like, and then he's able to. Like say like I'll take some peanut M&Ms and then you're able to be like actually
I go above and beyond.
Yeah, that was amazing. Great job. Well, overall this client was super pumped. They were super happy to be here. Asbury Theological Seminary, first time they were here. Pete's been the constant. He's the one that brought them in, but we're already hoping to get some additional work from them as well. But everybody left, I think, feeling really loved, known.
Sure did.
They all felt like they super succeeded.
Yeah.
And I think that's
they
the
were
thing.
all worried about that.
Yeah.
Surprisingly.
Yeah.
They were all worried about screwing it up. And
Yeah, but instead they were able to leave feeling like, man, I looked good, I sounded good, I was able to do what I needed to do. And so I think that's a big deal. We get to give people a gift of leaving with success. You know,
also,
it's like
Also, I heard like 50 times how much fun we are, and so they just had the best time being here, and that's very fulfilling as a team to hear that we're just fun to be around, and it's a good time. So it felt good.
Which is funny because that has nothing to do on the surface level with making a video is being fun to be around, but it has everything to do with it because if they're happy and feeling cared for and known, then that all comes across when they're on cameras. They feel confident and important, and they carry themselves a different way than if it's like, I'm just doing the video and I'm what's keeping everybody from going home. It's a very different experience. So.
There's one thing that I think has been helping make the client experience really awesome, and I don't think we've talked about it yet, but on the stream decks that we use to trigger a ton of things in here and get everything ran, we have now added, and it's growing, but a soundboard that has things like the Jeopardy theme song, the
Sound
Mario
effects
coin,
library.
sad trumpet, crickets, the seatbelt click sign beep thing from the airplane, and then the one that like I saw everybody from yesterday to today. Every time they would end, not every time, but every time they ended and I would use our cheering section button, they just lost it. Had the best time ever. And I was like, that's hilarious because I just pressed a button. You know what I mean?
Funny
and
how
it's like triggering this amazing.
You pressed a button, but they had an experience. And the experience they had was a huge crowd just cheered for them in the most excited way ever of what they just did.
It's so nice to have that because and then obviously if somebody makes a bad joke or says something against us, we also have a booing section button. So you got to be careful.
We didn't use any of the negative ones.
No, not at all. I don't think. But yeah, so that one, I just noticed I've been, we first got it and I wasn't really using it as much, but now I'm using it a lot more. Oh, and my favorite one was yesterday you were in there with a camera and you were like doing something and then you were going to come out, but
I was
you
like,
had to
wait a second, let me get a lens.
and so I pressed the Jeopardy theme song music, and everybody laughed because that was so funny because it was just like, oh, now the pressure's on.
Right, Andre's taking forever to go get the lens and come back out, and it was great.
Hilarious.
It was great. Well, sound effects are important. Music is important. Feedback is important. I think we also did a great job as a team of like telling them like, way to go, that was really good. You know,
And one of like Dr. Ragsdale actually said that was really helpful to him to know that he was doing well, because they're speaking in front of live audiences all the time. They can see the reaction from people and tell if am I boring these people to death. But in this situation, there's nothing to give them feedback. So saying over the line, you know, hey man, that was great, we're really doing well. It helps them, even though they're super pro, you know.
Totally. And I'm not sure if we've said this, but the way this works in our studio is we push a button, and when we push this button to talk to them, it comes over a really nice sound system, a really high-end subwoofer, really great sound, but also they see this shot. So this is...
Oh yeah, they see this literal shot.
These shots that you see of us are set up because we're pushing the button and talking. And so that, because we're able to do that, we're able to cut and say blah 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 blah, and then if Jay starts talking to them, when he pushes his button to talk, it cuts to him. It does a nice soft dissolve. So we have an entire ATEM Mini Extreme whatever just dedicated to our ability to be able to do some talk.
Morgan, can you cut to the control room shot too? So, and this is what exists on the screen if we aren't talking. So we have a button where we can talk, and then we can press auto and send it back to this. So at least when we're not talking to them, they're on stage and they see what we're doing.
They see what we're doing, and which is mostly good. Now, of course, all those screens up there would all be showing, we're watching ourselves to see what we're cutting between. But that would be all the individual different shots and multi-views and everything all set up. But they can get some concept of like, is anyone even in here, or what's happening? So yeah, it's
cut back to that real quick. If you come here and you're a client, by the way, we end the day with a cutting board of cookies.
Oh yeah, right
which is
here.
empty.
Fresh, warm.
You can see how many cookies are left.
We got a little scrap.
You were talking about something that's important with client experience, with being able to like hit the nail on the head, but also something that's important is if you guys that are watching this, if you've made it here, subscribing is pretty important. We want you guys to please start doing that
so
if you're
good
watching
with the
that.
transition.
Because what I'm looking at, I'm not an analytic person really, but our subscriber to watch ratio is about half right now. So I think there's some people that are watching this, and our content is going to ramp up and get a lot better, and we just need to have time. We also have clients, and so we're doing all this kind of stuff. But this is one of the many things that we're going to do here, and it's going to be really cool. So if you subscribe now, you can say you were one of the first. And
yeah, as of right now, we got 339 subscribers, so that's fun.
And we just started. We started a few months ago, and and it's growing. And I think that we have a lot of value to add. There are videos in the pipeline that we are making, but we're also busy working with customers. But as soon as we start getting those made, we're going to start releasing.
We're very thankful.
If you have questions and stuff, and put them in the comments. We're going to kind of collect.
Yeah, people continue to comment. We see all those. Some people mention. One thing I really want to talk about. There's two people I've seen mention LED, and like, you should think about this, but then, we also have rebuttals and there are big reasons why we don't use LED, and I want to get to those questions that people are asking. So please, we do see those. So
okay, keep bonus point. If you made it this far, what's one reason we don't use LED volume besides the obvious extreme cost of it is floor. So we want a floor and a wall and a ceiling, and so the problem with LED is that if there is an LED floor, it's illuminating light, so there's no shadow, or there's a grid or something like that. And so for me, having the flexibility of having floor and wall is maybe the biggest reason to go green screen over traditional green screen over LED volume for me.
Yeah, that was from a user that's capital GA and then a lowercase I and capital PS. I do not know how to say that, so I'm just gonna
there you go.
Put it on there. But so I do want to recognize it and get to those questions at some point and start answering them, because that gives us a nice little pipeline for ideas for content as well. So we appreciate you guys doing that.
I think we've debriefed.
We totally have debriefed.
As usual, subscribe, like, comment, hit the bell, and we'll talk with y'all later when we have some more clients to talk about.
Sounds great.
See you later.